The great poet DMX once said, X is going to give it to you. Let's talk X factors on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Locked On Badgers fam? Welcome to the show. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you for being an everyday or making this one of your first listens. Really appreciate you. I'm Roast Ryan Harris. We got the great Rajiv over there as well. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We were talking X factors. I love this. Rajiv brought this topic up. We're going position by position. What's an X factor on this team? Coaching X factors, plus some recruiting thoughts. I got a thought exercise for Rajiv and the community that we're going to get into. But let's just start this off, man. Let's go X factors. And really quick, I actually looked up X factor because I think people look at this a lot of different ways. So I'm just going to give the definition I'm using. A variable in a given situation that could have the most significant impact on the outcome. That's what I'm rolling with.
Yep, I agree. It's very like make it or break it, kind of like the guy that, because when I think of the Badgers season, I think 5-7, 7-5. We're probably going to be in that area, maybe 8, maybe 4, whatever. So what's the guy that's going to like be that X factor to actually be the person that has the big impact and can make or break it?
I love it, man. Let's start off. We're going position by position. Rajiv, I'll let you leave off with quarterback. Who is your X factor here?
Yeah, I mean, I think this one's the kind of the easy one. To me, it's Billy Edwards. I mean, as goes Edwards, so goes the team. So much is going to depend on his ability to fold into Grimes' offense, get a good connection with the wide receivers. He could absolutely have a great year. You know, like obviously when you couple Grimes' system with his skills, it looks like it should mesh up. But we've seen things not really work with new offensive systems too. And it could definitely be a break situation. How he goes, so goes us.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to be clever and be like Danny O'Neal or Carter Smith, but it's obviously Billy Edwards. This is the X factor. It's also the X factor because I don't think we really know what he is. I think we have an idea, but we haven't seen him with a good offensive line. We haven't seen him, in Wisconsin. We haven't seen him in this system. We're changing up a system. We're changing up players. He's got new receivers to throw to. He's got a new scheme. It's a new piece in Madison. This could go a lot of different ways. And we've had 3 years where, on this show, on your show, and the Discord, we talked up Tanner Mordecai. We were pretty excited about it. And I think we talked ourselves mostly into Tyler Van Dyke, but we still felt like there was something there. I think it's a major X factor. I 100% agree with you. It's Billy Edwards Jr. Let's go to running back. I think this one's more interesting because I wanted to go Dylan Jones, but I'm actually going to go Cade Yakimelli. And I'm going Cade for this reason. Because listen, Dylan is an X factor. He's never gotten a full workload. He's never been a full-time starter. We don't really know he's going to hold up. But I think because of those reasons, he needs a backup that has some physicality. He needs a guy that can run between the tackles. He needs a guy that can take some of those reps. I don't think that's necessarily going to be Darian Dupree, because I think Dupree is going to get some of those swing passes, jet sweeps used in different ways. I think Yak is the X factor here. Can he be a version of what we saw last year?
I 100% agree. Yakimelli's written down. That's why I made the reaction because, we're in lockstep there. I absolutely think it is. Dylan Jones clearly will be the bell cow, and he needs to be able to carry the load. But man, Yakimelli, if he can average what he did last, now he's not going to probably average 8 yards a carry, but if he can actually get proper carries and be a guy that can break plays open, break games open at times, be a really good change of pace, give those guys a break like that. Yeah, man, Yakimelli really has a chance to finally get his shot and finally make a real big impact on this team. I think that's a good shout.
Can we talk about it too really quick on Yak, a guy who deserves it? We live in the portal era, the NIL era, the era of if I don't get enough touches, I leave and I go find a better opportunity. And that's fine. But here's a guy who stuck it out. He's still here. He had every reason to probably go look somewhere else. I think he's an incredibly easy guy to root for.
Yeah, man. How he is not playing somewhere else is beyond me. Thank you for this man to stay with us. He clearly likes Madison. He clearly loves the school. And how great would it be to send him off in style, having a fantastic year?
Yeah, I would love it, dude. Great friend of the show, and honestly, great human being. Marty Griffin says, I get Bollinger vibes from Edwards. I would love that.
I like this comment, by the way. I saw this too. I'm glad you put up there. I love this comment. I think that's that's a really good. I was at Wisconsin when Bollinger played, and I loved him. And I thought it's a really good comp.
Yeah, and if that's what you get, that's a win. Let's shift to receiver. Again, we're going back and forth. I'm super curious where you go here because there's a lot of options at receiver.
All right, so receiver to me, when I think about X factor, I think about the guy that really can have a huge impact. It's Tretch Kekahuna for me, because with the way that Grimes runs his system, we know that he's going to be involved. Mesh routes, things like that over the middle, his ability to create space, his speed. Coming in, we thought this was going to be the guy. We were talking before the show about high floor. Like Tretch Kekahuna to me defined what high floor is and what he could be. But we haven't seen it quite yet. And this system really provides him that option of growth and yards after catch. Like his ability to make big plays in this offense is going to be huge. And it's a kind of a make or break year for Kekahuna too, right? Like he's been out there now. He really needs to show us what he's made of. And I think he's going to have a fantastic year. He's my X factor. I know a lot of people are going to say Ballard and it could be Crowdis or whatever, but to me, Kekahuna is my X factor.
Yeah, listen, I like this. This was to me the toughest position. I went between like 3 or 4 guys. I was like Chris Brooks, Crowdis, Tretch. I thought about Ballard is kind of an obvious one. I ended up with Crowdis, but I think you can go any of those. I really do. I think this is a position with a ton of interesting pieces that haven't fully proven themselves, which is basically the definition of an X factor. But again, if you go back to the definition that I used, something that can dramatically shift it one way or the other, I just look at a guy like Crowdis because I think anytime he touches the ball, God, listen, there's only so many people on this planet that run like a low 4.3 and that can catch a football. There's like a very limited pool, neither of which are hosting this show right now. I think if you give that guy a few touches a game, he just brings like this game-breaking ability that Wisconsin hasn't had much of. And it's unique. That speed is unique. It's electric. I went Crowdis, but I totally get the Tretch one. I think you could also go Chris Brooks. I think you could go Ballard. I think there's options. I think you could go Eugene Hilton. I think there's options here.
That's what's good about this particular exercise and this team is in that position group, you really can have anyone who has a great year. Like we did not expect Vinny Anthony to have the year he had last year. So who's going to be the guy this year that's going to have that year that we're going to come back and say, holy crap, man, he was our best receiver this year. Maybe it's Vinny, but we thought it was going to be Pauling last year, but it wasn't, right? So there's a lot that anything can happen really.
Yeah. Which is also carries with it some negative connotation because these guys might not hit. You might go to the end of the year and say, man, we just had one receiver this year and it was Vinny. Like all these guys have question marks outside of Anthony. So I think you went back to last year's show. I probably said Quincy Burrows is the X factor, like this big physical guy. Like wait till Quincy from Cincy gets ready on the field, and that didn't work. That was a great tagline, by the way, when he committed Quincy from Cincy. Yeah, that never worked. Last one I got on this section before we move to the next one. We're gonna do lineman next segment. I got tight end. I'm gonna go Mason Lane. To me, Mason Lane, the transfer coming in. Because I kind of feel like I know what we're going to get from Tucker Ashcraft. I could be wrong, and I could be underselling what he's going to be. I think he's going to be a solid guy. I don't think there's a ton of variance there for me. Grant Steck, I thought about, the highly touted young kid, huge. But I think Mason Lane is coming in with some unique speed. I think he's coming in to give you some of what Koziel did from a receiving standpoint, being able to get up the seam, being able to catch the ball. To me, they immediately pivoted to him when they lost Koziel. That tells me that they see something there that at least he can come in and play right away. I get Mason Lane as the X factor at tight end.
I went Grant Steck. I thought about Mason Lane as well, but I think Grant Steck is like surely one of these. We need to have that like stellar tight end again at this school because we've kind of been missing that. And we've talked about how Grant Steck could really be that guy. Do I expect it this year? No, but he could be the guy. He could absolutely. I mean, who knows? Mason Lane could get hurt or something, and all of a sudden Steck gets some reps, and you're like, oh, that's that guy that we recruited that we absolutely loved and who has that strong receiving ability, the guy that has that breakaway play. I like Steck, and I think that I'm hoping that this is the year we kind of see him take off a little bit. But if he does, that's a big win for the tight end group.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong there. I love him. I think he has a lot of upside still. Give me your offensive coach X factor.
I mean, I have two. Actually, I have two. So one of them is going to be Grimes, just because I think that's obvious enough that you got to have an offense that works. But the second one's going to be Kenny Guyton, because Kenny Guyton is coaching quarterbacks now. It's a group that he hasn't coached before. He played quarterback. He's got developing Carter Smith. He's got 2 guys who could potentially start, obviously, in O'Neal and Edwards. And we've got to make this offense flow. And he already coached a lot of those receivers. I feel like Kenny Guyton is kind of that X factor where if he can be a really big impact with that room and make those guys play at their best and develop Carter Smith, especially into whatever he can be, I think he's our X factor. But I think the obvious one is Grimes here.
Yeah, Grimes is the obvious one, which is why I pivoted from there. I didn't go Guyton only because I think Billy Edwards is more of a veteran guy. Not that he's above being developed, but I think Guyton's almost more of a in the future X factor with Carter Smith and those guys. I went Spalding just because this is really the first year where he's got some young running backs that he recruited, that he got committed, that he's going to develop. You had Ches last year, you had Tywee. Those guys kind of developed somewhere else. I'm curious to see what those running backs look like in year 2 under Spalding. So I went Spalding for that reason. I get the Guyton one, though, for sure as well.
Yeah, I like the Spalding shot. I think that's really good.
Yeah, Eric, obviously, Doc, good friend of the show, said Spalding, a lot of room, a lot of youth in that room with limited game reps. I think that's why I went Spalding. I think it's now his room, his guys, and they're young, talented guys. Let's see how they play. We're going to take a quick break here, come back. We're going to talk about those lines, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. Let's get into X factors on those positions coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. Today's episode brought to you, obviously, by our great friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel NBA playoffs are going on. Major League Baseball is going on. FanDuel is awesome. And Rajiv, I know, does a lot of sports betting. FanDuel has every option that you need if you're trying to get into a sports book, Rajiv.
Indiana Pacers are in the NBA Finals, baby. Let's place your bets. There's big, long odds on the Pacers because they're definitely not going to beat the Thunder. But you know what? Get your bets in on FanDuel because you can make a lot of money right now.
Dude, I'm cheering for the Pacers, by the way. I love Halliburton. And if you're a new-time bettor on FanDuel, head over there right now. Head over to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's come back into this one. Finish off offensive line. Rajiv, let's go offensive line. I went Jake Renfrow for my X factor. You're shaking your head. Maybe you got the same one here. I think with Renfrow, and by the way, there's a lot of shifting parts. Obviously, Kevin Haywood got hurt. We're still trying to figure out who that left tackle is. I think it's probably going to be Bronner. I think that's my opinion. That's just what I think is going to happen. But I think at the center of it, Renfrow came over a couple years ago from Cincinnati, and there was extremely high hopes for him. And then he was hurt. I think last year, even by his own admission, he was knocking off some of that rust. I talked to him a little bit in spring. He talked about that a little bit. I think this year might be the version of Renfrow that we were expecting 2 years ago. And if it is, as the linchpin of that offensive line, I think it makes everything work.
So I do agree. I have another one that I guess an alternate with, but I agree completely on Renfrow. Remember how injury prone he is. We've lost our best offensive lineman to a season-long injury. If we lose Renfrow, just imagine what happens with this line. He hasn't played a full year. He's had injuries. Like, this is my biggest concern about the offensive line is that, the left tackle situation is a huge issue. Is what's going to be Brother, is it going to be Heinzen, whatever. But if something happens to Renfrow and then you got Corey playing center or someone, you've got more shifts happening. His ability to stay healthy is the X factor for Renfrow for me. The one I'm going to give out is Mandel. We talk about, like, you got to talk about a guy with a high ceiling that can really make and change the line. Mandel can play guard. He could potentially play tackle. He's been talked about at both positions. He's been looked at both positions. He could be an answer for left tackle. Probably not, but maybe if he could be a left guard, if Brunner kicks out, there's a guy that can really make or break the line. We have concerns about this with the loss of Haywood. We're going to depend on this line a lot because of how much we're going to run the ball. So Renfrow, Mandel, big X factors.
Yeah, I like the Mandel one. Griffin Klein agrees with you, by the way. He put Mandel in the chat. He's just so physically talented. Mm-hmm. I almost wish that he'd been a guard since he got into the program, though. He'd have more reps there. I think it's one of those things where he's so talented, though, you try him at tackle and you see what happens. But, yeah, I think that's a good one, too. Let's go defensive line. Now, defensive line, I struggled breaking this up because you kind of have your defensive linemen, interior guys, you have edge guys, you have linebackers. However you want to break this up, though, go defensive line for me.
Yeah, so for me, I went Charles Perkins. He looks to be the guy that, he's coming in is going to be potentially our best kind of starting down lineman. And we have to stop the run. I cannot watch another season of this team getting bowled over by people. And Charles Perkins is the key to that. So as far everything X factor, anything D alignment related, it's the ability to stop the run, especially with the interior guys. That's I'm looking at interior and then inside and outside. But yeah, Charles Perkins for me is the guy. We need him to hit.
Yeah, that's where I went to. And this one wasn't a difficult one for me when I was like, who's the X factor here? Well, it's Perkins coming from the level he came to now the hype that he has. He feels like the guy who can make or break it. He feels like the guy who can step in. You remember last year, like Elijah Hills gave you splash plays on the defensive line. I think he can give you some of that with more ability to stop the run, because Hills did get washed out against the run. Not on him. He wasn't big enough. I think Perkins can give you some of both. And if he does that, the entire look on that front seven, that defense line changes. So I'm right there with you. Linebacker, I went Tackett Curtis. I just think, man, it's all there. Everything that made him that really elite blue chip guy several years ago is still there. He just hasn't been healthy. He's finally healthy. Talked to a couple people around the program and also some people in his camp. They are really excited with where he's at physically. This is the year it could all click. And if it does, don't forget 2 years ago, this was one of the most sought after, not just linebackers, prospects in the entire country. This was as blue chip as it gets. I think he's ready to maybe break out this year. And then if he does, you and I both love Allegro. You put those two together in the middle of that defense, I think you got some aggression, some speed, some sideline to sideline ability. Tackett Curtis, my X factor.
Could be one of the best inside linebacker groups in the Big Ten, because my guy that I picked for this is Allegro, because I think all Big Ten, potentially even higher kind of awards for Allegro this year. I think this is the year that we see that the rest of the country sees what you and I and everyone listening to this show has seen in Allegro since he was basically a freshman, is an elite linebacker with, to me, he's playing on Sundays. And I expect that to be what happens this year. I like the Curtis shot. I just feel like we need Allegro to be that guy. So if this defense is going to take that step up, he needs to take that step up and be the guy that we think he is. Christian Allegro he's the dude.
Yeah, I didn't go Allegro because I almost feel like there's not really an X factor there. I just think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think the X factor for me is his going from good to elite. I think this is the year he goes to elite. Yeah,
and by the way, this is a great comment here. A couple people, Matthew Anderson, Reiger, that's a great one. Nick Flav also says Reiger. Yeah, that's a really good one, man. Because Reiger, you talk about X factor, he could be anywhere from didn't play a snap because of injuries to leading the team in sacks. That's his range.
So Reiger's actually my next guy on the outside linebacker, defensive ends. That's what I grouped it together. And I had Reiger / Clayton. Those are the two guys that I was like, you talk about the ability to rush the passer. It could be Reiger and Clayton could be dominant in this league. Absolutely dominant. And Reiger's a massive X factor. I think a lot of people in the Discord put that. I completely agree. Reiger's a clear one for me, but Clayton is that other guy. The two guys that you're really not expecting much. We are expecting much, but we've never seen it before. They're new to the team, and they could really add something that this team was desperately needing last year, which were TFLs and sacks.
Yeah, you and I are lockstep here because I had Nicholas Clayton as well. And yeah, I think if you look at another guy, Sebastian Cheeks is somebody that's interesting to me. Yeah. Everything you said, agree on Reiger and Clayton. Cheeks is a guy that when you go back and you watch the film and you watch him play last year, I thought he had burst. I thought he gave you something on the edge with a bigger jump in reps, moving back to the outside or staying on the outside. I think he could be a guy too. Much like receiver, there's several guys here you look at and you wouldn't be super uncomfortable buying some stock in on them. So yeah, I like all those guys. I like Cheeks as well. Yeah, Will Hanna says Perkins has a chance to be a real plus player. Also says he's up in Rest Lake in Manitowoc. I have no idea where that is, but that sounds amazing. Okay. Let's go, Will. Let's go cornerbacks. I think it's your turn to lead this off. Let's go cornerbacks.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going Emilio Agard. I think we're not really sure what's happened with Forker. Do we know is that finished yet? That's not finished yet.
No, and I haven't seen a timeline yet either.
So assuming that Forker is not there, the X factor is the guy on the other side. Is it Agard? Is it Hill? Is it Latimer? I mean, I kind of wrote I wrote opposite Holman. I put that down. I literally wrote that down because I'm like, that is everything. I mean, we're going to go up against some really great receivers in this conference, against Alabama, against Ohio State, and you name it. We're going to need, and I think Agard is going to hopefully step up and be that guy. We're going to need him to really be the person that we expected. But at the same time, if Forkern's not there and we have these new guys, whether it's Latimer or Hill or whatever, it could really put us in a bad spot. And that's why whoever's playing opposite Hallman is my X factor.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, I wrote down Nizier just for the obvious reason if that's like the ultimate X factor. He's either going to play or not, right? But let's say it doesn't happen. I think Agard's a great pick. Hill's interesting. Matthew says Latimer. I'm not going to put Latimer just because I think he's kind of locked into the slot, and I think he'll be fine there from what we've heard. I think it's a good shout out, though, just to recognize that guy's going to play. Kairos Gaines is interesting. I actually think he's going to play a little bit this year because he gives you a bigger, more physical guy. What do you lose in Nizier Forgren? Bigger, more physical guy. That's kind of Cairo coming into the program. But, man, There's not an easy replacement for Nizier in that experience. That's a big loss. All right, let's go safety. To me, I think this is Brown. Like, he just has to massively step up. You're replacing Hunter Wohler. I think this is another kind of obvious choice that I'm looking at. Certainly, you brought in Trainer, you brought in Young in the portal, but it's going to come down to Zachman and Austin Brown. Ultimately, those are your guys. We know who Zachman is. He's a really solid, good starter, underrated, not a great player, but a good player. It's going to be up to Brown to fill a lot of what Hunter Wohler did.
I agree with everything you said. I had same name written down, and there's not really much to add. Like, it's his year to be the guy. And this is the year. This is what everyone waits for, right? They want their year to be the guy, their year to start. Well, here it is, man. Like, go be the safety that we think he can be. Really quick, let's finish up defense before we get into our next segment, which is a little bit of recruiting and your comments as well. Defensive coaching X factor. EJ Whitlow. The defensive line is everything for this group. I mean, everything starts and ends with that. And I know you could look at Mitchell, you could look at other things, but I just feel like our ability, we have to be so much better than we've been the last couple of years. And we have to be much closer to where we were in the old Jim Leonard defense days. I need to see a defensive line that's dominant, and I'm putting those all onto Whitlow's shoulders. And I really believe that with the group that he has now, we're going to see a huge lift. But if we don't, we could have a really, really rough season. And if we do, and if Perkins and Walker and these guys are really good, this could all of a sudden be a dominant unit, because we just talked about the linebackers that we have back there. We've got great guys on this team, but the defensive line's got to do their job. It falls on Whitlow. Whitlow's a good one. So I wrote down two, and I just, in my head, I've said, I'm going to go with the one that Rajiv doesn't say, because I think there's two really good answers here. I think Whitlow is one of them, because that spot has to get better, and they brought in a bunch of pieces. How are you going to utilize those pieces? That's going to be on that coaching staff. I'm going with Coach Cooper, though. I'm going to shift to Coop. Brand new coach. Again, you're replacing Hunter Wohler. You're replacing maybe the best player on that defense last year. You have a couple younger pieces. You might need to rely on that depth if somebody gets hurt. You're putting a new starter in there. That is that back line of the defense. And I've heard great things about Coach Cooper, by the way, like from multiple people, players and people in the program. I think he's a young star, but this is a big test for him with those passing attacks we're going to face this year. Austin Brown's got to be ready, man. So I'm going to go Coach Cooper on this one. I got a chance to meet Coach Cooper recently. He's a great dude, by the way. Just a really, really nice guy. And I talk about a guy that's easy to root for. Yeah. Cooper. Yeah, he shares an area code with me too. East Coast boys, let's go. All right, let's wrap up there on that segment. Come back. We're going to talk about the 5 best recruits so far in this class and how that might stack up to last year's class. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. Put your comments in the chat as well. We'll get to those questions, comments, thoughts, whatever you got on Wisconsin. Thank you for tuning in as always. And Rajiv, man, I wanted to do this. I think it's kind of interesting. Let's give me your right now of committed prospects. So we're not talking Amari Latimer. We're not talking Pettit, if those guys may or may not commit. Who are your top 5 commits in this class right now? So right now, my top 5 are Severs, no particular order, by the way. Severs, Wenzel, Hopkins, Reeder, and Bardo. Severs, I feel like, has just tons of speed at the tight end position. I really like his film. Wenzel, I think you and I really like him. I think he's very underrated in this class. Just watch that man's film and the change of direction that he has. The acceleration is elite. I really, really feel like that. And you can watch that guy's film. And I think when you look at his film, you can see parts of it that remind you of Allegro and Post's film. Hopkins, for the obvious reasons, the guy's got a super high ceiling at QB. Really like him. Really like the way he can move and move the pocket and be elusive. Aiden Reeder is a guy that I really like in this class that some people don't necessarily love. I think he's very instinctual. That's like the number one word I put on him. And a good high upside. Can play a couple different positions potentially. And then Tayshawn Bardo. Route running looks really good. Hands look good. And of who we have in the class right now, those are my top 5. So you and I are very similar. We both have Hopkins. I'll just really quickly say, yeah, the upside checks the box. Wenzel, you and I love. I got him. Wenzel's versatile to me. I think he can do a lot of different things on defense. He's rangy, long, athletic, quick, decisive. I love Reeder. I'm right there with you. I actually have Reeder number 1 right now. He's my favorite class. I love him. I think he's like Wenzel, but he's got a little longer, lankier frame. Mm-hmm. I think he has more upside. Severs, I'm there with you. Listen, if you give me a 6'4" tight end that runs, I don't know if it's a 4.48 or a 5.455, whatever. It's fast. It's fast. He's quick. Yeah. And the only difference we have is I don't have Tayshawn Bardo in my top 5. I have DJ Baugh. I think Baugh is kind of a really unique, athletic guy in the front. How many of those guys in that top 5 would slot into your top 5 last year? And I say this only to kind of it's not to diminish any of those players. We all like those top 5.
it's more to just get kind of a snapshot of where we are in this class right now compared to how we finished last year.
Yeah, so none of them do. Honestly, like, so my top 5 from last year: Posa, Clayton, Williams, Carter Smith, and Eugene Hilton. And they don't fit into that right now. I think there's guys that could, but I mean, it's tough. Like, I do think like a guy like Wenzel could end up having a career as good as some of these guys. Like, I think he has a high upside, but right now, based on what's available to us, you don't. And it makes you kind of think about where we are in this class and how this, Justin and I have talked about how this class is really about building that depth. Like, we don't necessarily have to hit like super, super high, but we've got to get really good players. But yeah, man, I mean, it doesn't look great so far.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, none of these 5 would fit into my top 5 last year, which is a similar top 5 to yours. I think we're a little off in a few spots. I have Leteju in maybe. And then if you start to factor in an Amari Latimer, a Jaden Pettit, maybe a Zachary Washington, do any of those guys fit into what you would consider your top 5 from last year?
Pettit to me does. Pettit is a guy that I think has elite upside, his size, the athletic tools that he has. And you watch this guy's film and you're like, okay, I get it. We're like, he's a guy that Ohio State is like, that's the kind of guy you could see going to Ohio State, Alabama. Like, he has those type of physical tools. And if we land Pettit, he would be in my top 5 from last year for sure. I don't even think it's close. I love Pettit.
I think Pettit, and we were talking about this before the show, Pettit is definitely worthy of that consideration. So is Amari Latimer. I think Pettit would be just outside my top 5 because I think his floor is a little lower, but he's definitely someone you talk about. It kind of leads me to my follow-up question, man. Does it worry you when you start even factoring the top prospects from this, the best players that we're in on right now, and maybe one of them slots into what would be your top 5 last year?
I mean, it's concerning a little bit, but honestly, and I hate to take like the easy take here, but I think when it's all said and done, that's when you can really evaluate where the class is, because it's about filling holes. Like, if the 24 and 25 classes are full of the stars that we think they are, we've seen some of them already, right? So like, if those classes produce the top end, what you need is depth. And we lacked that in some of these positions for a while. But when you look at guys like Arthur Scott and DJ Ba and some guys that could potentially add good, solid depth to the rooms that they're in, I think I'm okay with it. You don't have to hit on every big class. You've just got to have those years where you fill in positions that you need. Like, obviously we need running back. So if we get Latimer or Estrada or something, then yeah, okay, then we've kind of filled that room. It's really going to be holistically how you look at the class. I know that's a bit of a lazy take, but I just feel like I got to see it all before I'm really going to be concerned about it.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's lazy. I think that's a fair take. Here's where I'd push back maybe a little bit. And you tell me if you think I'm crazy, or again, this is just my thought on that, because I did catch your guys' show a little bit on that, talking about this is a depth class. What would our take be right now if we'd hit on a lot of 4 stars so far? Would we be saying, well, we don't really need that, we need a depth class? Or would we be saying, no, this is what you need to do, you need to stack talent?
No, I would be saying it's a luxury. Like, it's good. I'm all for getting more 4 stars. And I'm not saying we shouldn't go out and get them. I just feel like it's okay that you don't, if you don't have a class that has as many 4 stars as last year, the year before, as long as you get the right people, I feel like you're okay with it, because you do have to get guys to stack the room. And I'm all with stacking talent, but stacking talent sometimes also means getting guys that if they don't play, they don't see time their first year, they're going to be leaving, right? So I'm okay with getting the guys that feel like maybe they do need to develop a little bit. And maybe that means they're going to stay with the program a little bit, and we're not going to have to work so hard to keep them because they didn't get out there year 1. You get too many stars in this age of NIL, you're going to lose a lot of these guys. We're going to lose a lot of them anyway. We know that's just part of what we're doing. But I'm okay with getting guys that feel like they need to develop a little bit, because historically we have a program that has developed players well. And I think the guys in that profile of players, the athleticism that these guys are looking at, and the people that they're looking at for OVs and who we've already talked about tonight, I think you have some of that, like that cornerstone pieces of the program that you still need. So I'm going to stick by and say that I wouldn't really be saying you needed to do that. It would be a luxury if we get the 4 stars, but you didn't need to do it.
Okay. Now, and this wasn't like trying to set you up and walk into something.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like this program, the take I have on it, man, and everything you said about this is very early and holistically we need to look is spot on. Like, some of these guys, we're going to get guys committed later in this cycle that we're not talking about now because we have no idea they're even on the radar. There's going to be guys flipped. There's going to be late additions. There's going to be lots of movement. I think at the end of the day, when the dust settles on this class, I don't think this program's good enough right now to say it's okay. It's just a depth class. You know what I mean? I feel there's not enough talent, and we're not. I think Alabama, the really good schools, can settle with a depth class because they have the upper level star talent. We talk about those last two classes. Who are some of our favorite guys? One of them was Xavier Lucas. He's already gone. You know, there's historically a very good chance that 2 or 3 of our 4-star guys don't work out. You know, so I look at it like you need depth, absolutely. And I'm not even looking at it so much as a star perspective, but you got to hit on maybe more of these plan A's, because I think this team still needs that talent infusion.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I agree with that. I do think that, again, holistically, like some of these guys could end up becoming higher. Like I think Hopkins could go up. I think Wenzel's a guy that could really go up. And once we see senior film on them, maybe we're feeling differently about where they slot in. But no, your points are very fair. And I guess perhaps my thing is I'm also giving a lot of credence and weight to the 24 and 25 class. And you're right. We have lost one of our best guys out of that. But when I look at guys like Haywood, and I look at guys like some of the guys that last year, and like the Claytons of the world and the Postas of the world, like I'm feeling pretty good about what those guys are going to do for this program. And I just want to make sure that we can keep all the guys that we can get in.
No, that's fair. And you and I both are really high on the 24 and 25 classes. I think there's going to be a lot of good players that come out of that. So I think that's also fair. I think the last point I would have, and then I'll kick it over to you, and then we got a couple comments I'll throw up as well. Because the other thing we've really hung our hat on is the recruiting that this staff has done. They came in and they did elevate recruiting. They have elevated recruiting. That's a real thing. Well, then if this class isn't as strong, and that's the thing we've been hanging our hat on, it also just creates kind of this idea of, maybe, maybe that's not continuing to translate. Now you need to start winning.
So what I would say to that is it's defined. You have to define as strong, right? Like this class, I think will still end up being better than the classes that Paul Crisp was putting together in the last few years of his career. I think that like it might not be the best Luke Fickell class, but that to me is still a pretty good class. Like I think this class still could end up, it could be top 30. I'm not saying it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to end up in like the 50s or something, but maybe it's not going to be as good as last year, but I don't think it's going to be bad. And I think that for Fickell, it might be a little bit of a drop, but that also means 26 could be a lot better. So I think it's all relative in how we look at it too.
Let's throw some comments up here. Will Hanna says, my feeling is they need a top 25 class every year.
And I think we'll get there if we have to do it on the field though. We've got to succeed there first before we put really good classes together. Imagine if we have an above average year this year and 26, 27, when our schedule gets easier, then things really start to pick up. We will be able to get top 25 classes every year.
Yeah, listen, winning's going to help no matter what. I 100% agree there. And they're going to continue adding this class as well. Like I also agree with you. It's not going to be a bad class by any stretch. It's maybe we're splitting hairs a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of like the term, we just need to add depth. Yeah, I think we need to add depth and stars. And I think some of both can come from this class too, right? Like we've had highly rated classes that haven't produced stars, and we've had low rated classes that have.
Yeah.
Like the development matters. But I think I'm a little worried at the pace of it for this class. I don't know. I could be dead. I could be completely wrong though. Rick Tane says 3 stars do leave, but I guess 4 stars would be less patient. Kind of speaking to your point there. Mm-hmm. And Greg says, agree with Ryan. We need to continued influx of talent, like what Will Hanna said too. I mean, it's something that, at the end of the year we're going to have a much better picture of anyway. Agree with you there. Rajiv, anything else that, you wanted, let's throw up your X Factor that we pulled in the Discord as well. There's a really good comment in the Discord you wanted to put up.
There was, yeah. So Mr. October put in the Discord that Fickell would be his X Factor, but specifically Fickell's in-game coaching for 60 minutes, which has been an issue. And I love that. I wrote it on there in the Discord. I think that was a great comment. Talk about X Factor. Like we love what he's done in recruiting. Maybe not quite this year for you, but for the most part, we're very happy with him recruiting. But man, his in-game coaching has been a little bit, we're not sure now how much of that was sort of interference and disagreements he had with Longo, how much better is it going to be with Grimes. But I do think Fickell's performance in-game coaching is a big X factor for this team. I think that's a great shout from Mr. October.
Yeah, and I'm glad you put that up there. How much of that do you think is, like you said, the coaching, maybe just the synergy wasn't there? Him, Longo, there's been other pieces that have moved on. Talent not being strong enough, not enough depth on defense line. Like I'll say this, I think with Grimes this year and more talent in the defensive line, the in-game coaching should just naturally look better because the situations you find yourself in are better.
But he's got to show that he can still do it, through those situations too, and and make the right decisions at times. But yeah, for sure. And there was one other question I wanted to put up here from Rick Tange. Which true freshman has the best chance to be an X factor? Going with Hilton myself. I like this question. I'm going with Mason Posa. Even though we've got really good inside linebackers and we probably shouldn't necessarily see the field, but Mason Posa to me has such a high ceiling and a high floor, and he was my number one recruit last year by far. I think that Posa could really impact things this year. Now, you could say Clayton. There's a lot of people out there, but I want to give Posa a little shout because since he wasn't there in the spring, we haven't really seen him. We don't really know what that's going to be about. But I feel like talk about make or break and like that sort of home run ability. Mason Posa is my guy.
Let me ask you this, because I know Posa is your ultimate guy. Like, he's your ride or die in that class. Are you saying that more because he's your ride or die? And obviously we love him.
Yeah.
But Clayton was here in spring and had like 3 sacks in the spring game. Like, that
it's because of my ride or die, and I haven't mentioned him tonight, and I wanted to mention him. That's why.
Super fair. Love Posa. I think it's Clayton. I think it's Clayton. Eugene Hilton is obviously an important one. I think you could look at a couple of the corners if you want to. A guy like Washington, Scott, Skane. Like, one of those guys is probably going to play this year because they're going to need him. I think all of those are interesting options. Maybe a safety, especially if you look at special teams. A guy like Grandine. I know Jan Volk asked about special teams earlier. A guy like Grandine or Emmerich with their athleticism.
Yeah.
They're going to play. They're going to play at safety. Those guys are major athletes, and the staff likes them both. But yeah, it's Clayton, dude. It's Clayton.
It is. I mean, look, it's Clayton. Clayton or Hilton. But I wanted to give Posa some love too, because I'm really, really excited about seeing him in Badger Red.
I think it's super fair. All right, let's wrap it up there. Again, a couple comments that we didn't quite get to, but really do appreciate everybody tuning in as always. There's a billion things you could be doing with your time right now, from playing Tetris to watching a podcast on gardening, whatever it is. Thank you for being here with this little slot in time with us. We really appreciate it. I appreciate it. This channel appreciates it. Thank you. On Wisconsin, a bunch more content coming up this week. Really nice interview, I think, coming up with a recruit that y'all are going to want to see, plus some more content on official visits. When you're done here, go check out Brian Smith on the portal. We will wrap it up there on Wisconsin, and Rick can take us out. He said, fun podcast. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Rick. Let's go.